Have you ever had a family member take something from you, your money, your voice, your future, and say, "It's all for the family, you understand," right? $60,000. That was supposed to be the start of my freedom, a down payment on healing. Instead, it disappeared overnight into my brother's startup, without even a phone call. Here's the truth no one tells you. What hurts most isn't the loss. It's that they didn't think you mattered enough to ask. I'm not a lawyer, but over the next 90 days, I became the largest shareholder in the company my brother built with money meant for me. By doing the one thing no one expected, I stayed quiet, and I got smart. In this video, you'll learn what to do when family crosses legal lines, how to reclaim your power without burning the house down, and why choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. I started with zero in my account. 3 months later, I owned 48% of his company. Not through revenge, through receipts. If you've ever been told to be the bigger person while they took everything from you, don't skip this. You don't need to raise your voice to own the room. You just need to know how to walk in and make silence speak for you. Before we dive into the story, let me learn a bit about you. If you're a charming lady, please leave the number 1 in the comments. And if you're a dashing gentleman, leave the number 2. This way, I can send you a special greeting. Now, let's start the story together. I was settling in for a quiet Sunday when the call from Mr. Blakely, Grandma's attorney, lit up my phone. His voice was warm, almost apologetic, as he explained that the last loose end of her estate had cleared. "Your share comes to $60,000, he said. I thanked him, set the receiver down, and let the figure hang in the still air of my River North condo. Outside, wind pushed amber leaves across the tall windows like slow-moving sparks. Grandma's Afghan lay folded on the sofa. The pension check she had stretched with coupons and homegrown tomatoes had turned, in the end, into this tidy bequest. She used to say money was only a tool, but a good tool could fix a broken roof. I brewed Earl Grey in the mug she gave me my freshman year. Ivory porcelain, hairline crack along the rim, and pictured the roof I might finally repair on my life. A weekend cabin by Lake Geneva, or at least freedom from one more student loan. I opened my laptop and pulled up the account where the money should land. Balance, 0. I refreshed. Still, 0. I waited an hour. Folded towels, watered the snake plant, skimmed an article on inflation, then checked again. Nothing. Transfers can lag over a weekend, I reminded myself, but something tugged at me, the way a loose thread tugs at a hem. By late afternoon, I phoned Mom. She answered on the second ring, breathless as if hurrying. "Natalie, honey, everything okay?" I kept my tone light. "Did Mr. Blakely happen to call you?" A pause long enough to count. "He mentioned paperwork. Why?" "I'm waiting on the deposit from Grandma's estate." The hush on the line grew dense. I heard a drawer slide. Papers shuffle. "These things take time, sweetheart. There are plans already in motion." "Plans?" I asked. But she segued into the weather, how a cold front was coming, how Dad's knees were acting up, how Zach was burning the candle at both ends. I let her talk, felt the thread pull tight, and ended the call none the wiser. Dusk settled early. Street lamps blinked on as I drove north to Evanston for our standing family dinner. Traffic crawled past brick walk-ups and neon laundromats. A high school marching band practiced on a field somewhere. The distant brass sounded both hopeful and off-key, like beginnings often do. Mom greeted me with the smile she saves for church greeters and loan officers. The kitchen smelled of roast chicken and thyme. Dad set out plates, humming. Zach bounded in, cheeks flushed, hair a little too styled for a Sunday. We sat. Halfway through, Zach lifted his glass. "Couldn't have launched without that initial 60 grand, he said, voice bright with self-congratulation. My fork never reached my mouth. "What's 60 grand? He laughed as though I were teasing. "Grandma's gift. FinSync is live. Investors love it." The room went very still, the only movement the ceiling fan circling overhead. I looked to Mom. She smoothed her napkin. It's all staying in the family, sweetie. Your brother's success is our success. Dad cleared his throat but said nothing. The silence felt dense, like packed snow. I set my fork down and folded my hands. No one asked me. Mom touched my wrist. Her fingers were cool, scented with dish soap. We thought you'd understand. Zach needs momentum. You know how hard it is for young entrepreneurs. Zach was already scrolling through his phone, bathing in blue light. The distance between us felt longer than the 12 years that separate our birthdays. Dessert appeared. Apple pie, Grandma's recipe, but I could taste only cinnamon and resentment. I left my slice untouched. My wine glass sat half full, a ring of burgundy staining the white linen. Outside, cold air bit my cheeks. Leaves skittered along the driveway, whispering against the pavement. Their brittle edges made a sound like quiet applause for an exit, well-timed. On the drive back, headlights carved tunnels through tree-lined streets. I tried to remember the cabin by the lake and felt it recede like a shoreline in fog. Back home, the condo was dark and kind. I powered up my laptop, heart thudding, and typed, "Can family legally spend your inheritance without telling you?" The screen filled with statutes, case notes, forums lit by anger and relief in equal measure. I pressed return, ready to read every line. Somewhere behind me, the kettle clicked off, forgotten. The quiet life I had curated felt suddenly thin, as though someone had swapped the foundation for smoke. Grandma once told me as we shelled peas on her porch, "Don't let anyone rewrite your worth, Natalie. Ink dries faster than regret." Tonight her sentence felt less like advice and more like a blueprint. I leaned closer to the glow of the screen. If worth could be rewritten, I intended to take back the pen. Zach liked to say opportunity never waited for paperwork, as though bureaucracy itself should feel honored to accommodate him. A week after the inheritance dinner, I drove back to our parents' split level in Evanston, determined to ask for straight answers. Maples along Ridge Avenue burned red and gold, but the glory of the leaves felt unearned, like praise delivered to the wrong person. Mom met me at the door with cinnamon rolls cooling on a wire rack. Their sweetness filled the hallway, nostalgia served warm. Robert sat in his recliner, remote poised, half watching a football pregame show. Zach's laughter floated down from upstairs, where he was, no doubt, rehearsing some pitch in front of the mirror. We gathered around the kitchen table, the same varnished oak that had hosted spelling bee trophies and prom corsages. I cleared my throat. I talked with Mr. Blakely again. The $60,000 was wired to Dad's account the day after Grandma's estate settled. Mom spread butter on a roll, eyes fixed on the swirl of icing. Things moved quickly, sweetheart. Zach was going to lose an angel investor if he couldn't show committed capital by Friday. Timing is everything in tech. Dad nodded, gaze dropping to his coffee. We meant to loop you in. You could have called, I said. I would have answered. Zach bounded in, phone in hand, hoodie sleeves shoved to his elbows. Natalie, you wouldn't believe the traction we're getting. That seed money was the spark we needed. Family coming through, that's the story VCs love. I kept my tone level. Am I at least on the cap table? Zach blinked. The what? The capitalization table, I said. Ownership percentages. He glanced at Mom, then back to me. We're still finalizing structure. Lawyers, you know how they drag. Mom reached for my wrist much like she did when I was 10 and on the verge of saying something rude in church. What matters is we did this together. I pulled my hand back gently. Together means everyone has a seat. Dear friend, what would you do if you were in my shoes? I bet you can't guess what's coming next. But before we go any further, drop a 5 in the comments if you're still with me, because what happens next might just leave you speechless. A silence settled, broken only by the tick of the wall clock. Dad exhaled through his nose, the sound of someone postponing an argument. I pushed my plate away untouched. Over dinner, Zach held court describing beta users and burn rate, gesturing with his fork. I offered a single comment. Sounds risky. And let the words land like a pebble in a pond. He brushed them aside with a grin. Risk is where the magic happens. After dishes, I excused myself, claiming an early morning meeting. On the drive south, I remembered another sacrifice. 15 years earlier, Grandma had saved for my summer art camp, but Zach's robotics program announced a sudden fee increase. I volunteered my tuition so he could build tiny machines that flung ping-pong balls across a gym. Mom called me selfless. Grandma pressed a lemon drop into my palm and murmured, "Don't let anyone rewrite your worth." The candy melted before I reached the car. City lights blurred as I parked near Corner Perch Cafe. Inside, the barista knew my name but not my turmoil. I ordered a latte, then let it cool while I scrolled. There it was, Zach's LinkedIn post, a selfie in front of a co-working space captioned, "Day 1. Couldn't do it without family." 57 likes in 3 minutes. I tapped unfollow. The action felt small, yet a thread loosened inside my chest. Back home, I slipped off heels, opened my laptop, and navigated to the Illinois Business Registry. FinSync LLC, managing member, Zachary Carson, secondary member, blank. I dug deeper. Articles of organization, share allocations. My name nowhere. Not even a courtesy mention. Anger appeared first as heat behind my ears, then cooled into something sharper. I shut the browser, reopened it, checked again. Still invisible. Outside, the L rolled past, windows flickering like a slow-moving marquee. People on that train believed in tomorrow because no one had sold it out from under them. A notification chimed, LinkedIn again, but this time a private message from someone I didn't know. The preview line read, "He's about to tank it. I thought you should know." I stared at the screen while the city hummed beyond the glass, the latte on my counter stone cold and forgotten. Grandma's voice drifted up like wind through autumn leaves, and for the first time I let myself wonder what price silence might exact. Eric Devlin kept his office inside a cavernous co-working loft on Fulton Market, all exposed brick, polished concrete, and the faint hiss of espresso from a bar that never seemed to close. Early November air drifted through cracked windows, numbing fingertips and sharpening intentions. I arrived with a leather folder and Grandma's silver bracelet snug at my wrist, its single turquoise bead the color of morning sky just before it brightens. Zach's latest post, him grinning beside a slide that read, Series A in capital letters, still hovered in my mind. He looked triumphant, as if the future were a private elevator and he alone held the key. Eric rose when I approached, a tall man in a charcoal sweater who shook hands like a formality he respected but did not enjoy. He had been FinSync's earliest outside backer, the kind of investor who liked neat spreadsheets and quiet founders. Zach had given him noise instead, branded hoodies, breathless projections, a burn rate set to bonfire. "Sit," he said, motioning to a glassed-off alcove. Sunlight angled across the table, striping the floorboards. He slid a folder toward me. "Quarterly numbers. They're worse once you read past revenue and look at retention." I scanned the sheets. Users plateauing, churn climbing, marketing spend reckless. "How bad?" I asked. "Angel money gone in 8 months. Seed nearly gone too. Your brother is courting a bridge round at a valuation no one believes." I closed the folder. "If I took your position, it would buy you distance." "It would buy me sleep," he corrected, lips twitching toward a smile. 11%. I want out before the story turns. In my wallet, searching for a pen, a card slipped free. Grandma's handwriting in blue ink, the loop of the G graceful despite age. "You set your own price." I felt the words settle, a hand on the small of my back steadying me. I looked up. "Draft the transfer," I said. "I'll wire by end of day." That night, the bracelet caught lamplight as I typed routing numbers. Money moved from my savings to a shell LLC I had formed 2 days earlier. Another document slid through e-signature, the turquoise bead flashing each time my wrist lifted. 11% was a start. The week became a quiet march. I woke at 5, ran along the lake to keep nerves from calcifying, then stationed myself at a borrowed desk in the loft. Algorithms and analytics during daylight, coffee and calls after dark. Disappointed angel investors appeared like low-flying birds, circling once before landing on the offer I laid out. Partial recovery now or a probable zero later. Most chose the lifeboat. Some demanded phone introductions with my principal, never guessing the woman on the line already was. Each agreement added weight, yet a curious lightness grew inside me. No arguments, no guilt, only spreadsheets and signatures. I pictured Zach refreshing dashboards, watching numbers he didn't understand, unaware that ownership percentages were tilting under his feet. By Thanksgiving, I controlled nearly a third of FinSync. To celebrate, or maybe to breathe, I visited the Art Institute alone. In a gallery of American landscapes, I stood before a canvas of wide prairie, luminous and patient, painted by someone who must have loved unbroken horizons. The bracelet gleamed against my coat sleeve. I thought of Grandma tending peonies behind the duplex, saying a person could live a good life inside ordinary lines if she painted those lines herself. 3 days later, an email pinged my inbox. Subject, board meeting. December 2nd. Mandatory attendance for voting members. My name sat beneath it, properly spelled, no longer an absence. I forwarded the invitation to the legal counsel I had retained, then reopened the cap table. With one more silent purchase that afternoon, a weary seed investor in Denver ready to cash out, I reached 48%, close enough to swing every decision if I chose. Out on the balcony, the city shimmered, train tracks shining like pencil strokes leading somewhere decisive. I closed my laptop, catching my reflection in the black glass before the lid met the keyboard. Hair pulled back, eyes steady, lips set, not in anger, but recognition. I belong to this moment the way daylight belongs to dawn, earned minute by minute until the sky admits it is morning. Inside, I stepped to the framed mirror in the hall. Grandma's bracelet winked once, as if catching some secret signal. I smoothed my jacket, brushed a strand of hair from my cheek, and let the hush of the apartment wrap around me. "Let's begin," I said to the woman staring back. The words felt neither dramatic nor vengeful. They were simply accurate, a statement of fact. In the reflection, the turquoise bead flashed again, a lighthouse guiding ships that had finally chosen their own heading. And the room, quiet though it was, seemed suddenly full of forward motion. Zach strode into the glass-walled boardroom that Friday morning as if a brass band should have trailed behind him. His tie, bright fintech blue, swung like a victory flag, and he greeted each director with the wide grin of a man certain the applause was inevitable. Dad's old caution drifted through my mind, never embarrass your family in public. I felt the weight of that sentence, turned it over like a stone, then set it back down where it belonged, behind me. The skyline glittered beyond the windows, December light hard and clear. Inside, everything gleamed as well, white oak table, chrome water carafes, a tray of pastries no one would touch. I entered a few minutes after Zach, flanked by Ms. Abrams, my quietly formidable attorney. The director straightened, subtle as weather vanes meeting a new wind. Zach's smile faltered when he saw the extra chairs being pulled out. "Natalie," he said, recovering his bounce, "didn't expect you this morning." "It seemed wise to attend," I replied, placing a slim folder in front of me. Grandma's bracelet peeked from my sleeve. The turquoise bead caught a shard of sun and flared like a tiny lighthouse. Eric Devlin slipped into a seat near the far end, nodding once. His presence was my unspoken prologue. Whatever happened next had witnesses. Zach opened with a slide deck titled Series A Momentum, laser pointer darting across bullet points about user acquisition and brand buzz. The directors, Greta Lynn from Evergreen Capital, Jonah Patel from Meridian Ventures, and retired banker Harold Fitch, watched, polite but stone-faced. I waited, letting the click of the slides set a steady metronome inside my ribcage. When Zach finished, he clasped his hands. "With fresh capital, we project break-even in 18 months. Ms. Abrams stood. Before any discussion of new funding, there is a change in share composition the board needs to recognize. A ripple moved down the table. Zach's eyes narrowed. What composition change? She gestured to me. Ms. Carson will address it. I rose, smoothed the bracelet, and opened my folder. Over the past 6 weeks, I have acquired equity positions from early investors and founding advisors. As of close of business yesterday, those holdings total 48%. I slid notarized transfers across the table. Seals glinted red under the recessed lights. FinSync's majority now resides here. For a heartbeat, the room was soundless, except for the HVAC hum. Zach's voice broke the hush, thin and high. This is some misunderstanding. Natalie, you can't just... I kept my tone even. Every purchase is documented. Wire confirmations, signed consents. Mr. Devlin can verify his sale. So can Ms. Solis, Mr. Jeffries, and others. I tapped a second stack. Performance summaries Zach had never shared. The company's finances tell a different story from today's deck. Retention has declined 12% month over month. Marketing spend doubled without board approval. Payroll for non-essential contractors outpaces revenue. Jonah Patel adjusted his glasses, studying the pages. Greta Lynn frowned at the cash flow chart. Harold Fitch leaned back, fingers steepled, as though a riddle had just solved itself. Zach shifted to indignation. I am the founder. This is my vision. Greta spoke first. Vision is admirable, Mr. Carson, but fiduciary duty is immovable. Misuse of funds and failure to disclose material information breaches that duty, Jonah added. We need leadership that protects shareholder value. A motion followed, swift, clinical. Harold called the vote to appoint an interim CEO, while an independent audit proceeded. Hands rose. Jonah, Greta, Harold, Eric, and mine. Zach stayed on the table, fists closed. The motion carried. I felt no triumph, only a deep punctual quiet, the kind a clock makes when it reaches the hour and keeps ticking anyway. Ms. Abrams recorded the decision. The directors gathered their folders. Chairs scraped softly. Outside, an elevated train rumbled north, indifferent. Zach looked at me as the room emptied, disbelief melting into something fragile. Why, Nat? We're family. I folded my papers. Family shouldn't require secrecy to survive. The bracelet winked once more as I clipped the folder shut. If FinSync succeeds, everyone wins. But it won't succeed by pretending numbers are wishes. He opened his mouth, searching for a retort, but words failed. I thought of Grandma watching us on her porch, shelling peas, believing we would look out for each other long past her lifetime. I hoped, in time, Zach might understand that guarding the house sometimes means changing the locks. In the hallway, I paused by the floor-to-ceiling window. The city stretched below. Cold river, steel bridges, 100 stories of glass reflecting morning. My phone vibrated. A text from Mom bloomed on the screen. How could you do this to your own brother? I adjusted the bracelet, feeling the turquoise bead cool against my skin, and slipped the phone back into my pocket without replying. The first Monday of the new year found me standing outside a low-slung brick building on East 6th Street, the winter sun warm enough to smell cedar in the air. A hand-painted plaque beside the door read, FinSync Labs. The name an earnest local artist had lettered over the weekend, while mariachi music drifted down the block. Austin was still a city of murals and breakfast tacos, a place where ideas felt lighter because the sky refused to brood. Inside, rows of empty desks waited like polite guests unsure where to sit. I unlocked a storage closet, wheeled out a whiteboard, and wrote one sentence in royal blue marker. Money should feel like a tool, not a threat. It was something Grandma once murmured while balancing her checkbook, and it would serve as our North Star. Olivia Carter arrived first, hair pulled into a no-nonsense bun, a cardboard tray of coffees in hand. Fuel, she said, setting the cups down with military precision. 10 minutes later, Marcus Liu burst through the door, skateboard tucked under his arm, already riffing on user interface improvements. By 9, the three of us occupied a triangle of energy, laptops open, sleeves rolled, the air alive with possibility. I returned to my desk and reopened Grandma's journal, the spine softened from years of reading. Near the middle, she had written in steady cursive, "There's a difference between building and fixing. Fixing is gratitude. Building is hope." I underlined the words, then slid the book into the top drawer next to the bracelet. Our first sprint targeted women who balanced side gigs, childcare, and aging parents, the kind of financial juggle Grandma endured with a pencil and an envelope system. Olivia tore into cost structures, trimming fat no one had questioned under Zach's reign. Marcus redesigned the dashboard to greet users with calm colors and plain language tips instead of confetti animations. By February, we hosted lunchtime workshops with the local YWCA. Volunteers brought slow cookers of chili. Attendees traded stories about overdraft fees and paycheck gaps. I watched one grandmother teach her teenage granddaughter how to categorize expenses, their heads bent together over a tablet we'd supplied. The moment felt like sunlight spilling where shade had lingered too long. Word traveled. The Austin Chronicle ran a piece titled "Fintech for the Rest of Us," calling our reset a rare pivot from flash to foundation. Investors who once demanded hockey stick growth now spoke about social impact metrics and stable margins. I smiled, remembering Zach's fireworks-heavy pitch decks. Sometimes ceilings crack because the foundation was poured in a hurry. He did not take the shift quietly. Emails arrived at dawn. Subject lines all caps, "You stole my life's work," followed by screeds on betrayal and legacy. I flagged them, then slid each into a folder marked evidence. Mom's messages came softer, barbed in velvet. "Families work things out in private, Natalie. Remember who changed your diapers." I typed drafts in response, deleted them unread, and returned to cash flow forecasts. Mid-February brought the Central Texas Startup Showcase, a come-and-try-if-you-dare event held in a converted feed mill. String lights stretched overhead. Booths displayed everything from drone-delivered tacos to algae-based plastics. We pinned posters onto plywood walls. Olivia rehearsed metrics. Marcus cued a live demo. When judges paused at our corner, I spoke plainly about dignity and dollar signs, about how power begins the day a user understands her own numbers. No pyrotechnics, only a screen that translated late fees into lost hours of family time. They awarded us the community grant, $120,000 plus mentorship and a year of free lab space. Flashbulbs popped. For a moment, the applause seemed to drift from another life, as though I watched a younger Natalie winning the regional science fair, Grandma clapping from the front row. That evening, we toasted with Topo Chico and breakfast tacos at 9 p.m. I slipped away to a side office, opened my banking app, and transferred $10,000 into a fresh checking account labeled Freedom Fund. The bracelet warmed against my wrist, metal absorbing the heat of intent. Money could be hope after all. A knock sounded. Marcus poked his head in. "Press wants a quote about next steps." "Tell them we're hiring trainers before engineers," I said. "Tools only matter if people trust them." He grinned. "That'll play well." The team headed out, laughter trailing down the hall. I gathered my coat, switched off lights, and locked the door. On the sidewalk, cool air carried hints of mesquite smoke from a nearby food truck. My phone vibrated. Unknown number, local area code. A courier in a red windbreaker approached, rectangular envelope in hand. "Delivery for Natalie Carson," he said, requesting a signature. The package felt heavier than its size, the weight of paper dense with intent. Legal stationery peeked beneath the seal. Petition for relief. Hostile takeover claim. I signed, thanked him, and watched the taillights of his scooter fade into traffic. Under the street lamp, the envelope looked almost gold. I slipped it into my bag beside the Freedom Fund paperwork, the two documents like opposite poles of a magnet. One pulled backward, the other forward. Grandma's voice rose inside me, calm as ever. "Fix if you must. but build when you can. I turned toward the quiet of an Austin night, headlights sweeping across murals of bright cacti and wide skies, and started the walk home. They took my name off a check. I built mine into a brand. I start most mornings on the back step of my East Austin bungalow, cradling a mug that says, "Built, not borrowed." It was a gift from Olivia, who claimed the phrase sounded like something I'd toss off in a meeting. The ceramic has the faint chip of daily use now, the kind of imperfection that proves a thing was made to last. This March dawn feels easy. Crickets giving way to doves, a breeze carrying hints of mountain laurel honey. Inside, the news is low on the radio. Traffic updates, a farmer's market preview. No lawsuits in the segment, because the lawsuit that once filled my nights with legal Latin and dread settled 3 weeks ago. The judge dismissed Zach's petition with prejudice, a phrase that sounded harsh until I realized it meant final. The settlement cost me nothing but patience. The court affirmed my ownership, and Zach's claims of coercion fell apart under audit. Somewhere there is a file stamped with my full name, declaring the matter closed. At 8, I drive to FinSync's new open-plan office, a converted warehouse off Springdale Road that smells of cedar and fresh paint. Sunlight fingers across wide desks, succulents perch in mismatched mugs. Marcus tests a budgeting game on a bank of tablets while Olivia rehearses a briefing for potential community partners. A banner hangs near the loading dock doors. 1-year milestone, painted in green, the shade of new leaves. Before the team arrives for cake, sheet cake, vanilla, nothing artisanal, I gather them in the break area. I pull out an envelope embossed with my grandmother's initials. Today we're announcing the Helen Whitaker Scholarship, I say. Each year we'll give $60,000 to first-generation college students learning personal finance. The original inheritance, rerouted to Seed Futures, she would have cheered. Applause breaks out, quick and bright. Marcus actually whoops. Around lunchtime, Jessica texts a selfie from Chicago, her toddler wearing a FinSync t-shirt 3 sizes too large. I laugh and promise to visit this summer. In the lull that follows, my phone buzzes again. Zach's name. I let it slide to voicemail. A minute later, a single line arrives. "You're not family anymore." The words land with less force than I might have imagined. Grief had its season. Now it shrugs and keeps walking. An hour later, Mom's voice fills my voicemail box, soft but edged. She says she hopes I feel proud of destroying my brother. She reminds me of birthdays I missed, casseroles she froze for me in college, the candy heart stapled to elementary school Valentines. I listen to the entire message, breathing in through my nose, out through my mouth, as if I'm cooling soup. When the recording ends, I swipe left and hit delete. Not in anger, just alignment, like pruning a limb so the tree grows straight. Evening settles with the quiet authority of a curtain descending. I load a young live oak sapling into the back of my crossover and drive east, away from the city glow, until ranch fences replace streetlights. A low hill rises beside an empty county road, crowned by limestone and early bluebonnets. I park, shoulder the sapling, and hike to the top where the sky feels close enough to touch. Digging isn't elegant. Soil under nails, sweat at the back of my neck, but the work is honest. When the hole is ready, I lower the oak, tamp dirt around its roots, and pour a gallon of rainwater saved from last week's storm. The tree stands 3 feet tall, thin but certain. I tie a bright ribbon, turquoise to match Grandma's bracelet, around the slender trunk. Phones don't ring here, only wind and the faint rush of passing cars below. I imagine the oak in 10 years, branches sheltering picnics. In 30, a landmark drivers look for on the bend. Growth is a quiet declaration no one can revoke. The horizon begins its slow ember glow, and I sit on a flat rock, knees drawn up, the bracelet cool against my wrist. An exhale leaves my chest as if it had been waiting months for permission. I think about the stages of a life, fixing what broke, then choosing what to build. About the difference between holding a family together and holding oneself upright. Somewhere beyond that dark line in the distance, my parents sort through explanations, and Zach crafts another post, and none of it changes the soil around this tree. The first pale stripe of sunrise limns the sky, burning gold along the edges of night. I sip the last of my water, tasting earth and ambition mingled in the breeze. This was never about revenge. It was about respect, and I finally gave it to myself. Somewhere between planting that sapling and watching the sun rise, I realized peace doesn't always come from being understood. It comes from understanding yourself. Family, in its truest form, should lift you without asking for a receipt. But sometimes you have to draw new roots and grow from where you are, not where they left you. If you've ever felt like you were only valued for what you gave, not for who you are, remember this: you're allowed to choose yourself and still wish them well from afar. If this story touched something in you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What inheritance, tangible or not, are you choosing to reclaim today? And if you've ever felt like you were only valued for what you gave, not for who you are, remember this: you're allowed to choose yourself and still wish them well from afar. If this story touched something in you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What inheritance, tangible or not, are you choosing to reclaim today?